The mirror of karma. What you give is what you receive. In the bustling town of Meadowbrook, there lived a woman named Sandra. She owned a small diner called Sandra's Place, which was famous for its pies and warm coffee. Sandra, however, wasn't known for her kindness. She had a sharp tongue and little patience for others. She believed that hard work and success were all that mattered, and she had no sympathy for anyone struggling to get by. One chilly October morning, an older man named Mr. Harvey walked into Sandra's diner. He was a retired teacher, well known in the community for his kind nature, but life had been tough for him since his wife passed away. His clothes were worn, and he looked tired. "Good morning, Sandra," he said with a hopeful smile. "I don't have much money today, but could I have a cup of coffee? I promise I'll pay you back next week." Sandra frowned. "This isn't a charity, Mr. Harvey. If you don't have the money, you can't have the coffee." Embarrassed, Mr. Harvey nodded and left the diner quietly. The regular customers sitting nearby looked at Sandra, but no one said anything. Later that day, a young boy named Dylan came into the diner. He was about 10 years old, with messy hair and a backpack that looked too big for him. He often came to the diner after school to buy a cookie with the coins he saved from his lunch money. Dylan approached the counter and placed a few coins on it. "Hi, Miss Sandra. Can I get a chocolate chip cookie, please?" Sandra counted the coins and shook her head. "You're short, kid. No cookie for you today." Dylan's face fell. "I'll bring more money tomorrow, I promise," he said. "No promises," Sandra replied. "Come back when you have enough." Dylan picked up his coins and walked out, his shoulders slumped. Over the next few weeks, Sandra continued her usual ways, turning away anyone who couldn't pay or didn't meet her standards. She didn't care about their stories or struggles. "Life is tough," she often said. "You've got to fend for yourself." But then, things started to change. One evening, as Sandra was closing up the diner, a heavy storm rolled into town. Rain poured down in sheets, and the wind howled through the streets. On her way home, Sandra's car skidded on the wet road and hit a tree. Though she wasn't hurt, her car wouldn't start, and her phone had no signal. Sandra got out and started walking toward town, but the storm was relentless. She was drenched and shivering when she saw a small house with the lights on. Desperate, she knocked on the door. To her surprise, it was Mr. Harvey who opened it. His eyes widened when he saw her. "Sandra, what happened?" he asked. "My car broke down," she said, embarrassed. "Can I come in to warm up?" Mr. Harvey didn't hesitate. "Of course, come in." He handed her a blanket and made her a cup of tea. Sandra looked around the modest home and noticed how little Mr. Harvey had. She felt a pang of guilt remembering how she had turned him away at the diner. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harvey," she said softly, "for how I treated you before." Mr. Harvey smiled. "It's okay, Sandra. Sometimes life teaches us lessons in unexpected ways." The next morning, Sandra's car was towed, and she returned to the diner. But her troubles weren't over. Over the next few weeks, fewer and fewer customers came in. Word had spread about how she treated people, and many in the town decided to take their business elsewhere. One day, Dylan walked by the diner with his mom. Sandra stepped outside and called to him. "Dylan, wait," she said. She handed him a warm cookie and smiled. "It's on the house. And I'm sorry for before." Dylan's face lit up. "Thanks, Miss Sandra." From that day on, Sandra started to change. She offered free coffee to those who needed it and donated leftover food to the local shelter. Slowly, the customers returned, and the diner became a warm, welcoming place again. Years later, when someone asked Sandra what made her change, she said, "I learned that what you give is what you receive. Kindness always finds its way back to you, just like cruelty does. I'd rather give kindness." And from then on, Sandra's Place became a symbol of second chances and the power of compassion in Meadowbrook.